Maya Vance pushed open the heavy glass door of Prestige Motors, the polished chrome handle cold against her hand. She wore a simple gray hoodie, faded jeans, and a pair of worn-in sneakers, a stark contrast to the gleaming sea of luxury vehicles that sat under the bright, artificial lights of the showroom. Before we continue, if you are watching our video for the first time, please bless and support us by hitting that subscribe button. And comment where you are watching from. Please, we love to see how far our story reaches people. The air smelled of new leather and expensive air freshener, an environment designed to intimidate and impress. Before she had taken more than 3 steps inside, a man in a tailored suit, his name tag reading Mark Jennings, showroom manager, intercepted her. His smile was wide but didn't reach his eyes, which flicked over Maya's attire with a look of barely concealed disdain. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone dripping with a practiced, saccharine politeness that felt more like a barrier than an invitation. Maya pulled down her hood, revealing a calm, intelligent face. "I'd like to look at the new GT Roadster," she said, her voice even and quiet. Mark's professional mask twitched. He gestured vaguely toward a young, fidgety salesperson standing near the coffee machine. "Steven will help you," he said dismissively, already turning away as if the conversation was beneath him. Steven approached reluctantly, his own eyes mirroring his manager's assessment. He led her not to the flagship model in the center of the floor, but to a brochure stand near the entrance. "The specs are all in here," he mumbled, avoiding eye contact. "It's a very high-end vehicle. We also have some more accessible pre-owned models in the back lot if you're interested." The implication was clear. People who looked like her didn't buy new. They certainly didn't buy the best. Maya felt the familiar weight of being prejudged, a sensation she had carried with her for years. But instead of reacting, she simply met the young man's gaze with a steady calm that seemed to unnerve him. "I'm not interested in the brochure," she stated plainly. "I'm interested in the car. I'd like to see the interior." Her quiet insistence made Mark, who was observing from his glass-walled office, push back his chair and stride back onto the showroom floor. He clapped Steven on the shoulder with a false sense of camaraderie. Now, let's not waste our time," Mark said, his voice loud enough for several nearby customers to hear. He turned his attention fully to Maya, his posture exuding an air of superiority. "Listen, this isn't the kind of car you just look at. It's a serious machine for serious buyers. Are you sure you're in the right place?" His words were a direct challenge, an invisible wall built of prejudice and assumption. A couple browsing a nearby sedan glanced over, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and pity, as if they were witnessing a minor disturbance that would soon be handled. Maya didn't flinch. She held Mark's condescending gaze, her own eyes unblinking. In that moment, the entire showroom seemed to hold its breath. The quiet hum of the air conditioning was the only sound. She knew this dance well. The subtle put-downs, the dismissive gestures, the questions designed to make you feel small and out of place. But she also knew that her response would set the tone for everything that was to follow. She was not just a customer. She was a test, a puzzle that they believed they had already solved based on the cover. And what they couldn't see was that the real power in the room wasn't standing in a tailored suit, but in a simple gray hoodie, watching and waiting. The air in the showroom grew thicker with unspoken tension. Mark Jennings crossed his arms, a smug smirk playing on his lips, clearly expecting Maya to either become angry or retreat in embarrassment. He relished these moments, reinforcing his own sense of authority by putting people he deemed unsuitable in their place. But Maya did neither. She simply tilted her head slightly, a gesture of patient inquiry. "The right place?" she echoed softly. "This is Prestige Motors, isn't it? I believe I'm here to see a car you have for sale." Her composure was a quiet defiance that Mark couldn't seem to penetrate, and it clearly irritated him. His smirk tightened into a sneer. "Look, I'm trying to be polite here," he said, lowering his voice into a conspiratorial whisper, yet keeping its volume just high enough for the people nearby to catch the gist. "We have a certain clientele, people with specific financial profiles. We can't just have anyone off the street coming in to kick the tires on a $250,000 vehicle. It lowers the brand's prestige. He gestured around the showroom, at the wealthy-looking patrons and the pristine cars, as if to emphasize the chasm between their world and hers. Maybe a dealership down the road would be a better fit for your budget. A few of the other salespeople who had been watching the exchange exchanged knowing glances. One of them let out a quiet chuckle, quickly stifling it when Mark shot him a look. The message was clear. This was a team sport, and they were all on the same side. The injustice of it all settled on Maya's shoulders, but she refused to let it weigh her down. She had faced this kind of gatekeeping her entire life in classrooms, in boardrooms, and now on a showroom floor. She knew that reacting with anger would only validate their prejudice. Instead, she chose a different weapon: knowledge. The GT Roadster has a twin-turbo V8 with 720 horsepower, she said, her tone conversational, as if she were discussing the weather. The carbon fiber monocoque chassis reduces its curb weight significantly, but I've read some reviews that mention slight understeer on tight corners. Has your service department received any feedback on that from current owners? The technical precision of her question caught Mark completely off guard. His smug expression faltered, replaced by a flicker of confusion. He opened his mouth, then closed it, clearly having no idea how to answer. He was a manager, a salesman of status, not an engineer. He had expected tears or anger, not a detailed technical inquiry. The brief moment of silence was telling. The power dynamic for a split second had shifted. A man in a sharp suit who had been observing the interaction from across the room raised an eyebrow. His interest peaked. The spectacle was no longer just about a poor woman being put in her place. It was becoming more complex. Frustrated and embarrassed by his inability to respond, Mark doubled down on his initial strategy. That's all fine and good, but talking the talk doesn't mean you can walk the walk, he snapped, his voice regaining its sharp, condescending edge. I don't have time for games. Either you're here to buy, or you need to leave. He pointed a thumb toward the glass door, a clear and final ultimatum. The silent promise of confrontation now hung ripe in the air, ready to burst. Maya looked at his pointing thumb, then back at his face, her expression still unreadable, her dignity an unshakable fortress against his siege of insults. She knew the moment was coming, the one where quiet endurance was no longer enough. The public challenge had been issued, and the entire showroom was now the stage. Mark's final command, "You need to leave," echoed in the pristine space, a deliberate and public humiliation. The few customers who had been trying to mind their own business now turned to watch openly. The air crackled with the drama of the confrontation. This was no longer a subtle dismissal. It was an eviction. "I'm not leaving," Maya said, her voice still quiet but now laced with a steely resolve that cut through the manager's bluster. "I am a potential customer, and I have a right to be here." Mark let out a short, incredulous laugh. "A potential customer? You couldn't afford the floor mats in one of these cars. I've had enough of this. You're trespassing. I'm going to have to ask you to leave one last time before I call security." He took a step toward her, using his physical presence to intimidate. The scene had reached its boiling point. A young woman near the entrance pulled out her phone and discreetly started recording, her expression one of righteous anger. An older gentleman who had been speaking with a salesperson shook his head in disgust. "This is outrageous," he murmured to his wife. "To treat someone this way is simply unacceptable." But no one intervened directly. They were spectators to a drama they felt powerless to stop. Mark, feeding off his perceived power and the silence of the crowd, puffed out his chest. He felt he was winning, protecting the sanctity of his high-end world from an intruder. He was the gatekeeper, and he was about to slam the gate shut. It was at that exact moment that the main glass door swung open again. A distinguished-looking man in his late 50s, with silvering hair and an impeccably tailored suit, strode in. He exuded an aura of calm, natural authority. This was Mr. Henderson, the regional director for the entire auto group. His eyes scanned the showroom, taking in the tense scene in an instant. Mark standing aggressively over a woman in a hoodie, a handful of customers watching in shock, and a young woman filming the whole thing. Mark's back was to the door, so he didn't see Mr. Henderson enter. He was too focused on his target. "All right, that's it. Time to go," he barked at Maya, reaching out as if to grab her arm. "Sir, I wouldn't do that if I were you," a calm voice said from behind him. Mark froze, his hand hovering in the air. He turned slowly, his face shifting from a mask of angry triumph to one of pure, unadulterated panic as he recognized his boss's boss. "Mr. Henderson, I didn't expect you today," he stammered, his bravado instantly evaporating. But Mr. Henderson wasn't looking at him. His gaze was fixed on Maya, and his expression was one of profound respect and apology. He walked past the stunned manager as if he were a piece of furniture and stopped directly in front of Maya, offering a slight, deferential bow of his head. "Ms. Vance," he said, his voice resonating with warmth and sincerity. "Please accept my deepest apologies. I was told you were arriving this morning. I came down as soon as I could. I am so sorry you had to experience this." The entire showroom fell into a state of suspended animation. The quiet murmurs ceased. The phone that was recording dipped slightly. Every eye was locked on this unbelievable turn of events. "Ms. Vance?" The regional director was apologizing to the woman in the hoodie. Mark Jennings's face went from pale to ghostly white. His mind raced, trying to connect the dots, but the picture that formed was a nightmare. He looked from his boss's respectful face to Maya's calm, composed one, and the horrifying truth crashed down on him with the force of a physical blow. The woman he had insulted, mocked, and tried to throw out was not just a customer. She was someone far, far more important. The silence that followed Mr. Henderson's words was deafening. It was a silence filled with the frantic whirring of minds recalibrating reality. The woman who had been treated as a trespasser was being addressed with more deference than anyone in the building. Mark Jennings stood frozen, a statue of pure horror, the color completely drained from his face. The name Vance echoed in his memory. He remembered a company-wide email from a week ago, an email he had barely skimmed, announcing the acquisition of the dealership group by Vance Automotive Holdings and the appointment of a new CEO, a CEO named Maya Vance. His mouth went dry, his heart hammered against his ribs. Couldn't be. But the scene playing out before him was undeniable. Mr. Henderson, a man Mark deeply feared and respected, was still standing before Maya, his expression one of sincere regret. "This behavior is inexcusable, Ms. Vance," he continued, finally turning to cast a glacial stare at his showroom manager. "Mark, my office. Now." Mark flinched as if struck. He opened and closed his mouth, but no sound came out. His world had crumbled in a matter of seconds. The smug superiority he had worn like a suit of armor had been stripped away, leaving him exposed and terrified. The other salespeople who had been smirking earlier now avoided eye contact with everyone, suddenly fascinated by their own shoes. The customer who had been recording raised her phone again, capturing the spectacular downfall. Maya, however, showed no signs of triumph. There was no "I told you so" look in her eyes. Instead, her expression was one of quiet sorrow. She looked at Mark, then at the rest of the staff, and finally, her gaze swept across the entire showroom. "Thank you, Mr. Henderson," she said, her voice clear and steady, carrying across the silent room. "But this isn't just about me. This is about a culture. A culture that judges a person's worth by the clothes they wear or the car they drive." She took a step forward, and it felt as though she commanded the space in a way no one else could. "When I took over this company, I did so with the promise of building it on a foundation of respect. Respect for our customers, all of our customers, and respect for our employees." She paused, letting the words sink in. "What I saw here today was the opposite of that. It was a poison that devalues people and, in turn, devalues our brand more than any inappropriate customer ever could." Mark finally found his voice, a desperate, trembling whisper. "Ms. Vance, I am so sorry. I had no idea. That's the point." Maya replied, her voice not unkind but firm. You shouldn't have to know who I am to treat me with basic human dignity. Every single person who walks through that door deserves to be treated with respect, whether they're here to buy our most expensive car or just to ask for directions. She turned back to Mr. Henderson. The changes here will start today. I want a full review of training protocols, and I want to create a culture where inclusivity isn't just a word in a memo, but the standard by which we operate. Mr. Henderson nodded gravely. Consider it done, Ms. Vance. The story of what happened at Prestige Motors spread like wildfire. Mark was dismissed immediately, a cautionary tale for anyone who believed their position gave them the right to demean others. Maya Vance's quiet, dignified stand became a legend within the company, a powerful lesson that real authority comes not from a title or a price tag, but from integrity and character. The true value of a person, like the true value of a business, is not what's on the surface but what lies within. What do you think about what happened in that showroom? If you had been there, would you have spoken up? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Every voice helps to build a more respectful world. If this story inspired you, please give it a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more stories that challenge our perspectives and celebrate the power of dignity. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.